Hello, Tue. Once again,
Hello.
we just had the little introduction off the camera. I'm really happy that you're here, and I already told you everything I had to say. But basically, yeah, once again, I found you through This Week in Rust, um, uh, an article where you talked about basically starting a Rust community. And I will link that as well in the description and also in the comments because I think there's not really that many Rust communities. When I search it on meetup.com, there's not that many that show up. Usually they're in the larger cities. Um, but yeah, I thought if people that have ever thought about creating a community, specifically Rust, they would find you really inspiring. And they would start kind of a small movement in their city too. So, yeah, today we're
It's
going
good.
to talk a lot about Rust and also a lot about you. Uh,
hmm
my first question,
Interesting.
my first question to you is, what first drew you to Rust, and what about the language resonates most with you, especially in embedded systems development, because that's actually what you do.
Yeah, well, the first time I heard about Rust was in a former job
Mm-hmm.
where we were developing wind turbine controllers,
Mm-hmm.
mainly for retrofitting old wind turbines. Wind turbines that are 20 years old or something like that, where the mechanical part is still working, but you cannot get spare parts for the electronics anymore. So we created a controller that you could put into these old turbines, and then we wrote an application for controlling the wind turbine.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was there, it was quite small turbines, but we know that we had to be a bit careful when it comes to segmentations faults and like that or something like that when we come to the larger wind turbines. And the reason for that is that if the application controlling the wind turbine crashes for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
it will create an emergency stop. And on larger turbines, you can only have a certain amount of emergency stops because it's really hard on the structural parts of the wind turbine. You can actually see it move. The tower moves forth and back when it performs an emergency brake. So we talked a bit about how could we improve the quality of our software
Mm-hmm.
so we don't have these emergency brakes. Um, and someone had heard about a new upcoming language called Rust.
Mm-hmm.
So I started reading the book,
Mm-hmm.
and before I had finished the book, I actually started on a new job doing something completely different. And it was also in the embedded business. Um, and a lot of the code was written many years ago in C++, and I was asking, well, maybe we should try to do something else, try Rust. And luckily, my manager agreed. So we tried that, and I have never regretted it since. So that's how I came into Rust. Talking to people, reading the book, and pure luck, I guess.
And you're really
So
lucky
yeah,
with your manager as well.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
uh,
I guess that's a lot of managers that would just say no
mm-hmm.
because they might not know why they should change and the benefits of changing and stuff like that. But yeah, I was lucky.
Yeah, for sure. My second question is, can you share your journey into embedded systems development? How did you transition from traditional software development to embedded systems using Rust?
Yeah, actually, I've always done embedded development.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since I was a child, I have been interested in electronics. So when I started to study, I actually studied electronics, and we had some software as well. And quickly, I found out that I thought that the software was much more fun than the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I ended up in the embedded business from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Wow, actually, really lucky. At certain point in my university, I was also really into embedded stuff, and I really wanted to
Hmm.
pursue and study about it as well. I don't know why I didn't, but when I talked with a lot older people, already in their 50s and 60s, they gave me a good advice, or maybe a bad one. They told me um, finding a good company in the embedded world is really difficult. So you're going to pick
Hmm.
a really difficult path if you go into embedded programming. I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah,
Yeah.
I
I,
regret it a little bit because I was super interested into this stuff.
mhm. Yeah, I think it depends on the location you have. Uh, I used to live in Copenhagen after I graduated,
Mm-hmm.
and there was actually quite a lot of embedded jobs in
Mm-hmm.
the Copenhagen area. Then I moved far away from Copenhagen, out in the middle of nowhere. Here, no, not so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There are a few, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so this is the third question. I'm really excited to hear about this one. What are the biggest advantages you found in using Rust over other languages for embedded systems? Most likely you have used C and C++, except Rust.
Mhm. Um, well, the biggest advantages is that in my perspective, well, it started like I told you about that it was to improve stability,
Mm-hmm.
and that is actually still the biggest advantage for me, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That it your software just tends to be more stable, matures faster compared to C and C++, in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion at least. Um, I think that was the first discovery I did. Then the second discovery I think was that I can actually also do my work faster in Rust.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think mainly because of all the different crates and cargo, which is just a big help. When coming from a C background where you have the C compiler and make, and every time you need to use a library, you go out on the internet and search for it, and maybe you can find something that maybe compiles. So using cargo for pulling in different crates for doing all kind of stuff is simply just amazing, and it really improves your performance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the third advantage that I found was memory safety.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and yeah, cybersecurity just gets more and more important, and it's just nice to have a language that is memory safe.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Um, it is a common theme, and people often mention
Mhm.
that Rust has a really um, I forgot exactly the phrase, but basically it's really difficult to pick up and master the language
Mhm.
because it's quite different. It has its own, let's say, details. Did you ever think the same way, or was it quite easy coming from a C background to pick up Rust?
No, it was not easy. Actually, quite some time ago, I wrote an article saying something like Rust is easy,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I still believe that is true. It is hard to learn, but I don't think that it is any harder than other languages.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that you need to put all your effort in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to have a lot of knowledge before you can even compile your application.
Mm-hmm.
If we compare with C or something else, you can make an application with very limited knowledge, but when you deploy it, test it, then things might just blow up, and then you need to use all your time in debugging and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So 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 actually, I have programmed in C for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I have programmed in Rust for 4 years or something like that. And I think within the first couple of years, my code quality in Rust was higher than it was after 20 years with C. And maybe I'm just a bit bad C programmer, maybe, but I can see that Google and Microsoft also goes away from C++. So apparently, I'm not the only bad C programmer. So yeah, but yes, Rust feels hard when you're learning it because it is a bit different, and there are something you need to learn and need to
Mm-hmm.
understand why things are as they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it pays up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, which book did you read? The official Rust book or something specific?
Yeah, the official Rust book, I think it's an amazing book explaining why things are as they are and describing the different strange things that you can find in the language, which might not be obvious if you just learn it by reading some examples or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think it is very well written, that book. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can only recommend it.
Yeah, and also it's quite good for beginners. I think
Mhm.
everything is really well explained and quite in detail.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so my fourth question is, and this is something that I also want to hear from you, but also when we communicated, I learned a lot. But basically, when I initially wrote questions for you, so pretty much questions in advance that we would like discuss, I confused
Mhm.
embedded systems with no SCD environments. And
Mhm.
you told me that quite a lot of not only developers but people in general can miss this too. Can you maybe elaborate on this misconception? What is the difference between working with embedded systems that run Linux, which is what you're familiar with, and something
Mhm.
more traditional no SCD embedded development? And how does this distinct impact your approach to Rust in embedded systems?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's correct that many people, when they hear embedded in the terms of Rust, they think no STD.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it doesn't has to be like that. The name embedded just originates from that you have a hardware product where the software is already embedded. It's not something that you should provide yourself. It is embedded in the product.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be with an operating system or without an operating system. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I have for us, I have only used with Linux. I've never done any real work on no STD, so I cannot really comment much about it. But yeah, I know it's a lot harder because you don't have the standard library. and you
Mm-hmm.
might not have a memory allocator. So yeah, you need to do some more thinking about how you handle your memory and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a bit more complicated.
Yeah, it certainly does sound more complicated. Um,
Yeah.
and currently you work for a company called R2P. I'm not sure what it stands
Yes.
for. And Rust,
Neither do I.
the Rust work that you have been doing is in this company, or it's a company that is not related to
Yes.
this? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
That is in R2P. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe can you like discuss a recent project that you have worked on at your company where Rust played a critical role? And maybe you can also tell me some of the challenges that you have faced and how Rust helped you solve these challenges.
Sure. The current projects I work on, everything that we do is related to public transportation.
Wow.
Uh, and what I do in my current project is that I make a CCTV system mainly for buses.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I have a screen right here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a screen that is placed out in the bus where the driver can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some IOs connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, when the doors open, it gets a signal, and it will show the door cameras for the driver, and likewise when he is reversing the bus, it will show the rear view camera, and he can see the saloon cameras, so you can see what happens inside the bus and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what I'm working on, and it is based on a Linux OS built in Yocto,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have wrote some services in Rust, a GUI application and some other applications.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and that has been amazing to use Rust for that. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it certainly sounds amazing, and also I think Rust really fits the work that you guys need to achieve. So from my understanding,
Mhm.
if you have a CCTV camera, it needs to there should be no delays, right? And I think Rust is also perfect and fits the situation
Mhm.
quite well. Okay. The next question is, how do you handle cross compilation in your embedded Linux projects? Do you encounter any challenges when compiling Rust code for different hardware platforms? And how do you manage this complexity?
Usually it's actually quite easy in Rust because of Cargo and
Mm-hmm.
Rust up, where you install the different tool chains for different platforms. And what I've done is actually just to install the right tool chains in a Docker container,
Mm-hmm.
and then I use that Docker container for building my applications.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually quite simple to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Um, yeah, when I'm asked about the cross compilation, I think Rust makes it super, super easy. I totally agree as well.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, I
it
think it's
does.
godsend. I think it's really godsend. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, okay, next question. How do you typically interact with Linux kernel when writing embedded systems code in Rust? So are you writing user space applications or are you working closer to the kernel or driver level itself?
Yeah, I'm only writing user space applications. I
Mm-hmm.
have other people doing the OS stuff, so I can concentrate on the applications. So the deep technical knowledge of Linux, I really don't have. So yeah, I just write the user space applications, and it's so easy to use in Linux. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, I wanted to say, is the embedded Linux a typical full kernel, or it's not?
I think mostly today, I think it is a full kernel with all the different features, but of course, all the different support for different hardware has been stripped off because you only need to support one kind of hardware.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think you will typically have all the different features, and I also think that today you don't need to patch your Linux kernel as people used to do to get more real-time performance that is built into the kernel today. So that's it's starting to look more and more like a standard Linux system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see. Okay. The next questions are regarding your Rust community, and I hope I'm also pronouncing
Mhm.
this correctly. Aarhus? Aarhus?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so as an organizer of Rust Aarhus, what was your motivation in creating the community to begin with?
Well, I started learning Rust in this new company R2P
Mm-hmm.
all by myself, and well, it was a hard time learning it by yourself. Also, I think that the Rust language has evolved since that, so I think it's actually easier today than it was at that time. Uh, but I would like to get in touch with other people that was also programming in Rust, and I had no idea if there was anything just within 100 kilometers or something like that, or if I was completely alone. Um, and when I started learning Rust, it was just when COVID broke out,
Mm-hmm.
and and actually that was an amazing time for me because all the different meetups was suddenly online,
Mm-hmm.
so I could join Rust London, Rust Berlin, to get inspiration and feel the great community that they have. And I thought, oh, if only someone would start a community here where I live. But nobody did that. Nothing happened. So actually, while sitting in a bar in Brussels before the FOSDEM conference, uh, I kind of mentioned that, well, I thought about starting a Rust community, and then the others said, "Yeah, please do. We will come." And then I got home and nothing happened, and then I got thinking, well, what happens with this community? And then I had to start it, and it has been an amazing travel so far. So and I found out that there are a lot of people interested in Rust, and for our meetup, we actually have people coming from 100, 150 kilometers away just for our meetups. So that is amazing. There is a huge interest in that. So yeah,
Why do you think it is important to have a community? Uh, so you wanted a community to, let's say, you are bad at Rust and you wanted to get better by talking to other people. That was your main source of motivation.
yeah, and also I could see that in the future, one of two things would happen. One could be that I needed a new job. Then I wanted to have a Rust job.
Mm-hmm.
or I needed to get more colleagues, and then I would like to hire someone with Rust experience. So
Mm-hmm.
somehow I needed to make sure that people started using Rust. Um, so yeah, and I think it is important to have a community to promote this, because it is still a young language, and uh, some people and companies are a little bit scared of being first movers in these kind of things, and
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure that it is a well-proven solution before they roll it out. So showing that more and more people are using Rust will definitely help these
Mm-hmm.
people in thinking, okay, we are not the first anymore. Let's look more into it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I also see that from when I started the Rust community here, that more companies are starting to use it.
Wow.
It is going slow. Yeah, it is wow. But it's also wow. It's going slow. Um, and yeah, I know it's just me being impatient, but that's how it is. But of course, these things take time, and that is completely fine. But yeah, it doesn't happen over the night.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Um, I wanted to ask, do you think most of the people that come to your meetup, or maybe that I shouldn't ask it this way, but have you in general had people that have never touched uh, code in Rust before, but they wanted to learn more about it? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there are many people in the first meetups we had. We actually made a small poll amongst the participants to hear who have never touched the code, and think I had four different experience levels,
Mm-hmm.
and it was actually that there was a lot of people that had never touched it, but there was
Mm-hmm.
actually also quite a lot of people that used it on regular basis,
Really?
and I think that was actually surprising to me that so many people was using it on a regular basis 2 years ago almost. So that was really nice.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think when we also had the first meetup in Tbilisi, a lot of
Mhm.
people showed up that also have maybe heard the name Rust, but they have never touched code in Rust before, but they were interested in. And I think also, so
Mhm.
I see in the back of you there's little fairies. I think the fairies, the mascot itself is also so cute. It's a great advertisement for the language itself, and quite a lot of people like
Mhm.
notice the crap sometimes, and they're like, "Oh, this is really cute," and then they're like, "Oh, it's a programming language." So yeah. Um,
Yeah. Actually, talking about Paris, I've just made some a few stickers with our new logo for Rust Aarhus. I don't know if you can see it.
it's really sweet. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Um, yeah, I need to visit you in Denmark and get one of those stickers to
yeah,
put on
please
my
do,
laptop.
please do.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, my next question is, how do you see the Rust community evolving in Denmark? And what role do local meetups play in helping that growth?
Yeah, I think it's like what we talked about a
Mm-hmm.
few minutes ago, that it helps to see that more and more people are using Rust. It's just nice to see that there is a community. You are not completely alone in the world if you take this path. So that is really important, I think.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that some of people that come to your meetup, they're from quite far away and they have to travel to get there. Have they thought
Yeah.
about maybe creating community themselves in their own city or town? Or do you think it's not really? I think actually being an organizer is quite difficult and it's a lot of work. I think you will agree with me on that one.
Um, uh, yeah, in the beginning there was quite some work. Currently, actually, it runs more or less by itself. Not completely true, but well, mostly people come and say, "Hey, we would like to host a meetup." Oh, okay, great. And well, I've been thinking about giving a talk. What do you think about that? I think it sounds great.
Really?
So yeah, sometimes I also need to push companies a little bit to hear if they would like to sponsor us. But it's not unusual that the companies just contact me directly and ask if they can host a meetup and people have talks. So that is really amazing. And
Yeah.
it makes it so much more fun because you can feel that people want to do this, so you're not standing here by yourself.
Yeah. Actually, you're really lucky because Rust in Georgian market, it's non-existent. So
Mm,
we don't really have a company that you can contact for sponsorship because no one really uses Rust, and which I hope, of course, changes in the future because we have quite a lot of
mm,
people using Rust itself. But yeah, I think sponsorship is quite important for a meetup to do like small different
mhm,
things for the members themselves. But and
yes.
another thing that I wanted to say is, um, yeah, so for you, situation is different, but for us, actually finding speakers is quite difficult. And
Mhm,
um, although I have a couple friends that I think if I write directly to them, they will for sure agree and prepare something. But I
mhm,
think on the other hand, in general, it's really difficult to find a speaker, and you have to maybe beg and be like, "Oh, it's a great opportunity. You should definitely come and speak at our meetup because
mhm,
you're like crazy experienced in Rust." But yeah, it's quite difficult. And we also had Session Ice. It's a another platform where you can do call for papers. Maybe you know the
mhm.
platform, but it was open for
No, no.
maybe 1 year, and we had like two submissions from two different people.
Okay.
So
Mm,
yeah, call for papers didn't really work out. Um, but
no,
yeah, I think
no.
if you bug people a little bit and also companies in the beginning, and you maybe just know show them about your existence and things that you're doing,
Yeah,
then I think
yeah,
people will also feel more comfortable in reaching out back to you. So yeah,
yeah. Sure.
that's quite good. I'm really happy for you. Um,
Yeah. For in the beginning of all our meetups, I say that we need these sponsorships and we need to have talks and I say that we need talks in all experience levels and I actually
yeah.
mean that because we want to hear from the beginners that have just seen how amazing the enums are and it
Mm-hmm.
can just be 10 minutes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we also want to hear the really pros that have just dived into a very narrow thing and knows everything about it, and they want to share something about that in for 45 minutes or something like that. That's also amazing. I think we need both of these kind of talks,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Actually,
it can be quite hard to find these beginners actually because they think I don't know all the details and stuff like that, but it doesn't matter
mm-hmm.
as long as you have the enthusiasm and drive, then nothing else matters.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree. And I think this is
mhm,
a problem in general with Rust. Even with Rust jobs themselves, that everyone wants really experienced people with like 5 or 10 years experience with Rust, which is not even possible. But on the other hand, I think most of the people that are interested in Rust, they don't have that much experience, but they're really
yeah,
interested and they try and they use it on their daily basis. So yeah, actually, I never really thought about this, but yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's really important to have those that are just starting off to just talk about the language and share whatever
Mm.
they like. Um, yeah, I
Yeah,
think it will make others feel more relatable as well. Um,
exactly.
so funny. The next question is, what advice would you give to someone interested in transitioning to Rust? Particularly, maybe you could talk about embedded systems. What do you think is the most difficult thing that they will face when transitioning to Rust?
Yeah, well, as I told you, what I did was I read the book, and
Mm-hmm.
then I was sitting all by myself trying to learn Rust. And my biggest recommendation is don't do that. Read the book, but don't sit by yourself.
Oh my god.
If and then we're back at the community. Find someone to study it together with, and do some cool stuff together, and learn it from bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that is the best way to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, for for embedded systems, well, I have always been into embedded systems and used C. So, well, what was easy for me was to understand the memory handling, and I
Mm-hmm.
can hear from people coming from high level languages that that is actually what they find hard.
Really?
So it depends where you come from, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, something like iterators and trades is something that I wasn't used to have in C, so it took some more time to get the feeling of that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're coming from a higher level language, that might be easy to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it all depends on where do you come from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And do you have maybe a specific recommendation regarding staying up to date with Rust? So I think uh, This Week in Rust is a great source of all
Mhm.
things new in Rust. We also mentioned the book, and the meetups themselves, I think, also bring quite a lot of knowledge to you in terms of
Mhm.
programming. Actually, any type of programming doesn't even have to be specific, language specific. But do you have maybe some, I don't know, blogs that you like to read, or I don't know, a specific YouTuber that you like to watch regarding Rust to just learn or stay up to date?
Yeah, well, I use the weekly Rust newsletter. Newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just skim it through every week to see if there's something interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Then in February I will go to Rust Nation Rust conference in London.
Mm-hmm.
I also attended last year, and that was really amazing. So I'm doing that again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here next year in February. I will also attend FOSDEM also in February in Brussels,
Wow.
where they also have a lot of Rust talks and everything else regarding open source software.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I guess those are my main channels I
Mm-hmm.
use for staying up to date.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should probably check one of the this Week in Rust issues because I will for sure post our interview in there as well. So my final question is,
Mhm.
so Rust is, I think, pretty much increasing in popularity. I think you will for sure agree with me on that. Um,
Sure.
so regarding the increasing popularity in embedded systems itself, do you maybe foresee any specific challenges or limitations for its adoption?
Um, I think it has a really great potential. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Also because if you're running no STD,
Mm-hmm.
then typically you would have a small real-time operating system or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not Linux, but something much smaller. Uh, but if you have Rust with no SSD and using something like Embassy, which is an async library for no STD,
Mm-hmm.
then you actually have a kind of a scheduler. So maybe you can actually avoid having this extra RTOS, real-time operating system, and just have a raw Rust application, and that is really strong, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, One of some of the downsides is that chip manufacturers really don't provide Rust code for their chips and libraries for using the chips. It is always in C code,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a shame. And hopefully it will change over time. I can only
Mm-hmm.
hope. And then, of course, there's also some conservatism in the business, saying that
Mm-hmm.
we have always used C, we will continue to use C. I think that will change because of cybersecurity. You need to make sure that your code is memory safe and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that over time that will also change. But how fast it will change, I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it has a great potential, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I, the final part specifically, it really bothers me as well. Um,
Mhm.
so you're really lucky with both your company and also your manager. But I think there's a lot of people that want to push Rust in whatever they're doing, and it really fits the situation. But the
Mm.
manager or the company is really against it. Um, so yeah, I actually really do hope this changes in near future. Um, but I
Sure.
I think if you push and how do I really put this? I'm not sure, but you can get your way if you if you really annoy them to the fullest. Um, so
And
yeah.
it's really hard because the managers usually want to see a business case if they're going to change something.
Uh-huh.
They want to see how can you make more money if you do this, and
Uh-huh.
how can you quantize the quality of the code like this. You can say, well, we will have fewer bugs, and the customers will be happier because we have fewer bugs. But how much money does it pay to the company?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really hard to write down a business case for it.
Yeah, yeah, actually correct. And at the same time, how do you write down the business case if the manager doesn't want you to use Rust to begin with, you know? Unless they allow you to use
Yeah,
it for a certain amount of time, it's also really difficult to describe
yeah,
what you
it
can
is.
win. Um, so yeah, yeah, I also hope it really changes. But I think future of Rust is looking quite bright. Um,
Mhm.
I always see like a lot of interesting articles popping up, and also in the beginning I would only see like really large corporations using Rust, but now I see a lot of startups that are like 100% based on Rust. And yeah, I think future is looking bright, and I'm excited what the
Yeah, it
future
is.
will hold for Rust. So
I
yeah,
agree.
maybe you have a question to me. If not, then actually we have covered all the questions that I wanted to ask today. Um, and yeah, maybe if you have a question, you can ask. If not, then we can say goodbye.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it was really nice talking to you, and I hope we can stay in touch. So I also know how your Tbilisi meetup goes, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe we can inspire each other for something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, please continue to reach out,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and that also goes for any other meetup organizers. Please reach out and let's inspire each other.
Mm-hmm.
That would
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tue. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
I'll see you sometime soon. Thank you very
Sure.
much. Bye bye.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.